Alright, what's happening, everybody? Looper Norris here. Hope everyone's doing alright. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna do a album review. This time we're gonna do Larry June and The Alchemist, The Great Escape. A lot of you guys, you probably know more about The Alchemist more than Larry June. The Alchemist is a legend. The Alchemist, he's been producing beats for like a long time, man. Like, he probably started maybe like the early 2000s. And then started to like get really good, started to pick up more more exposure like in the mid 2000s towards like the 2010 2011, around that era. That's when he started to work with like Currensy and like the Action Bronson and guys like that. Basically, he's now working with this guy Larry June. Larry June is a rapper from San Francisco, California. Started to get into the collaboration with The Alchemist, I think like a couple of years before. He might have been featured in a lot of songs with like Action Bronson and like Joey Badass and guys like Currensy. He was featured in a bunch of their songs. That slowly turned into a collaboration with The Alchemist, because from, I would say, like 2020, maybe like 5 years, 6 years prior to that year, The Alchemist would usually work with like Currensy, Earl Sweatshirt, Joey Badass. He worked with a lot of different rappers. He would basically make albums with them, produce the whole record, and then have them rap on them, and then have a bunch of other features to like make the album a little more. Doesn't really make it makes the album better, I guess. But I mean, having multiple features like that, it's a good business tactic, because then you're getting the fans from each of those features to listen to the one guy's album. It is a smart business tactic, but it also makes the album better, because then you're getting a different sound from a different rapper on each track. That's one thing I find interesting about The Alchemist and how he sets up his albums and mixtapes. Yeah, like The Alchemist, he sort of does the same thing on this record here. Each song has like a different feature. I think there's like 14 tracks on this one. Almost every song has like a different feature, and then maybe 3 or 4 of the songs, it's just Larry June rapping on it. And there's a lot of great features on this one. They put Khalifa on the album. You get Currensy, a feature from Currensy. Slum Village, which is pretty impressive. I didn't think Slum Village still made music. They're one of those old school hip hop groups that kind of stopped making music like maybe 10 years ago, but it's kind of cool that they were able to get a feature from them. It's like an old school feature. It's cool to see their name on the record. Action Bronson, of course, because Action Bronson, he's basically best friends with The Alchemist. I'm pretty sure they actually feature on the same show that they were playing, I think for not Vice, but I think it was like Much Music or something like that, or MTV. I think it might have been MTV. Action Bronson has a TV show on there. I forgot what it's called, but it has something to do with like eating food, going around different restaurants around New York and basically trying out their food. The Alchemist is also featured on that TV show. There's a lot of great features on this project. It's probably the number one thing I like about it the most. The Alchemist, he goes crazy when it comes to like the producing part of the album. Track 1 to the last track, I think the album was produced very well. I mean, it's no surprise, because The Alchemist, he's one of my favorite producers ever. He's probably top 10 for me, and like he's been on so many records. He's worked with so many different rappers, every East Coast rapper that ever existed. 'Cause when you really think about it, he worked with everybody, man. He worked with Jay-Z. He had a lot of hits with Mobb Deep. That itself is very impressive from The Alchemist. Yeah, like this project, honestly, I didn't think it was going to be as good as I thought at first. Before I started getting into it, I didn't think it's going to be as good as it actually was, but then after listening to every track from 1 to 14, it's pretty impressive. Far better than I thought it was going to sound. At first, before listening to it, I didn't think it was going to be that good, just because I've heard Larry June rap prior to listening to this album, and I thought I was just going to hear that style from him the entire way. Just kind of be like more of a boring album where you kind of get what you expected. I also thought The Alchemist was just going to carry Larry June throughout the album with his beat making talent. After listening to the 15 tracks, there's 15 tracks on here. After listening to the 15 tracks, I'm a lot happier with what I heard than I thought it was going to be. It's definitely a better album than I thought it was going to be. Going through the tracks, the only thing with this one, a lot of the songs sound the same. That's a one thing that I expected before listening to the album, that I was afraid that I was gonna see that with this album. I thought maybe the Alchemist was just gonna carry Larry June throughout the album. I thought every track would sound similar with each other just because of the style of the Alchemist. He usually likes to make every beat like it doesn't sound the same really. It's like sort of a similar recipe. You know what I mean? The recipe for each beat is kind of like the same, you know? Like he's a sample based producer. He likes to sample a lot, and he tends to sample the same type of songs, like from the same genre, maybe even from the same artist, and just like different songs, right? Like it almost seems like this whole album was sampled from the same artist. He kind of just used a different song for each song. So say go into the track listing for 60 Days, the sample in that beat sounds very similar to the sample in Summer Rain or Ocean Sounds or Orange Village. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the only problem I have with this album. Every beat sounds the same because of the way the Alchemist samples. Now, that's a Alchemist style. Everybody that's known Alchemist throughout his career, we all understand that that's his style and that's what we expect from him, right? So we can't really complain too much when we hear a record from the Alchemist, produced from the Alchemist, and every song sounds almost the same, right? And it's almost up to the rapper to kind of like shift things when you're thinking about that type of stuff, right? Like you're almost putting the ball into the rapper's hands to kind of like guide the song into a different direction instead of just coming up with the same flows and the same style that rapper would do on like a typical, since we're talking about Larry June, the same style and the same flows that you would typically hear from a Larry June song. You don't really want to hear it on an Alchemist song, especially because it's a separate album. It's not a Larry June album. He's collaborating with another producer, so you would think that he would switch up his style to match it better with the Alchemist's style, right? He kind of sounds the same as if he would rap on any other track that he's done in his past. There isn't really anything wrong with that, because sometimes when I'm listening to a rapper, I kind of like that every song sort of sounds the same. You're getting what you expected because it works the best for that rapper. That rapper might be so good that he doesn't really need to change his style. He can rap the way he usually raps and everybody's going to be impressed. Maybe because of the lyrics, or maybe because there's just a special way on how they like write. Larry June sort of has that. He sort of has that where you're kind of okay with him rapping the same way on every track. He does something slightly different with every story that he's trying to like incorporate into his song. At the same time, I feel like it's too much though. Like for this album, I feel like every song sounds too similar. You know what I mean? Where it kind of gives you like a monotone feeling throughout. It kind of gets boring after a while, you know what I mean? That's the only thing I don't like about this album, especially with it has 15 tracks, which is like in the middle in terms of like being a long or short album. It's like it's a tough thing with Larry June. Like I think he's good, but like I don't know. Like I feel like the Alchemist is like a legend, I think, right? So for him to be working with a guy like Larry June, it must be more for like a promotional, tactical way for the Alchemist to make more money off of the project so that it brings his name to a higher level. The next time he works with another rapper or collaborates, it's going to be with like a even bigger rapper like J. Cole or Drake or something like that, where he's getting the world's attention. Because I think the Alchemist is one of those producers that he's made a lot of money and he's had a really, really good career with his music, but he's always worked with like underground rappers and he's always been in the underground scene. And even with his own music, because he raps himself, right? And a lot of you guys probably don't even know that, right? Probably never heard an Alchemist song just because he's so below the radar, so like underground, you know what I mean? Not a lot of people are gonna know about him, but his beat making is so classic and so legendary that people will know him for his beat making. Like you hear them name Alchemist, you're gonna remember him and know him for his beat making. Saying that, that's probably the most negative thing I can say about this album. Besides that, this album is fire, man. This album is pretty nice. It's very chill. It reminds me a lot of like the music, the hip hop music that I used to listen to. Like I kind of listen to it still now, but it's that type of hip hop that you're just playing in your car and you're just cruising around and chilling, and the beats are very like, I really like the beats. I like the Alchemist. He's one of my favorite producers, so I didn't think I was gonna like not like the beats on this one. Like I kind of expected the production to be at a high level. It was a matter of Larry June and what he was gonna do with the beats, and I think he did a good job at like understanding how to like be on the album, you know, try not to take over it too much and just kind of like smoothly like glide through the album while everyone kind of just enjoys it and everything is just kind of like laid back. And it reminds me of like looking at like a sunset. You know what I mean? When you look at a sunset, clear sky, you know what I mean? And you kind of see like a little bit of pink in the sky. You see a little bit of orange. You see a bunch of different colors, and you're just like sitting down, wind's blowing through your hair, and you're just chilling, relaxing on like doesn't even have to be a beach. It can be in your car or something like that, and you're just chilling. That's the kind of music that you're gonna put on when you're in that situation. It's not something that's gonna like make you go crazy and like start dancing like crazy and like, oh, this is a classic. It's not something that you're just gonna go back to and repeat immediately. I like what they did on this album. It reminds me of how hip hop was like in the mid 2000s. A lot of those like Slum Village, Big Brother. If you're a hip hop head, you'll know what I'm talking about. These are a lot of old school groups. I don't want to go through every track on here and give a breakdown explanation of how I feel about every track, because every song sounds the same. Like I said, the only negative thing I can say about this project is like every song does kind of like give you the same vibe. It doesn't really sound the same, but every song on this album gives you the same vibe. Has a similar like style, arrangement, and you know, it's still a dope album. Like I can listen to it. I could definitely listen to it again. It's not hard to listen to. It's easy to understand. That's another thing I like about Larry June and his style. I don't think he's the best rapper in the world, but his flow and his style and his like punchline combinations are like really easy to understand. So like when you're listening to him as he rides the beat, it's really it's easy to understand what he's talking about in his lyrics. I feel like that's an important part in hip hop. He did a good job at like writing his music in a way where a large amount of people will understand at the same time, getting multiple age groups and not just like one age group where only men in like their 30s are gonna understand, and they have to be black or something like that, and they have to be from California, or like, you know what I mean? He did a good job at making his lyrics accessible for like everybody to listen to, which is not easy to do. That's like really not easy to do, coming from somebody who writes his own lyrics myself. Like that's not an easy thing to do, and he did it really, really well on this project, like perfectly, if anything. And his flow can be very unorthodox at times too. I was saying earlier how his style is too monotone and how that it made the album very monotone, but at times his style can be very unorthodox. At the same time, he probably can rap better than he did on this album. He kind of like maybe took a step back to just make the album more of like a chill sound instead of trying to kill every track. That could be it too. And after saying all of that, honestly, I probably give this album like a 7 out of 10. Like, to be honest, yeah, I think a 7 out of 10 is a good rating, just cause like it could have been better for another, like it could have been better in ways where like the Larry June could have done better in terms of like making every track sound more different from each other. That's the only thing I didn't like. Everything else about it I liked. I really liked the features that they put on this track, like Wiz Khalifa, Action Bronson, Joey Badass, Currensy. These are all rappers that I listen to, not just now, but like when I was younger too. Like I knew about all these guys way before, so it's cool to see them featured on this project. They should definitely collab on another project. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, just because this album is getting a lot of attention. They probably made a lot of money, and it's a lot going on with this project, so I wouldn't be surprised if they collab on another one. Yeah, 7 out of 10, man. Like Larry June, like I was saying, like I don't think Larry June's that good of a rapper. Like I'll be completely honest. Like still a good album. Still something that I'll listen to again. Better than I thought it was gonna be. So alright, so that's it for this video. This elevator music. That's Larry June and the Alchemist, The Great Escape. Thank you guys again for the subscriptions and the likes. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video. I got a new EP. If you haven't heard it already, it's on my YouTube channel, so you can listen to it. The Gas Station EP, 4-track EP. Give it a listen. It's on Spotify, all platforms. I'm Looper Norris once again. I'll give you guys more information on when I'm going to perform. Stay tuned for the next one. And yeah, I'm Looper Norris, and I'm out of here.